Guys, you're all very, very welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone for tuning in as well. Sorry about the slight delay beforehand. That was a computer error on my part, so apologies. So guys, we're just going to jump straight into it. I'm going to talk with Rachel a little bit first about the genetics of the problem. Rachel.
Oh, sorry about this. Hold on.
Leave it alone.
Never a dull moment with us.
There we go.
What the shoot was like.
This is absolutely perfect. So, Rachel, this is your first feature film as a writer and director. You'd obviously worked on shorts like Nice Night for It and Scenesters before, and you've kind of worked in adverts as well. But this is like a brilliantly written, I think, feature film and really complete in its characters and setting and what it does. Where did the story come from? Because the idea of vigilante hairdressers or hairstylists is absolutely brilliant. So you can tell me a little bit about how that came about.
Thank you so much. So I think initially, I always, for a long time, I knew that I wanted to do a Dublin comedy, and I knew that I wanted it to feature young working class women. I knew I wanted to bring that voice to the stage because it had been missing for way too long. So it was kind of a case of ticking around in my head, just trying to find the right vehicle for that, really. I think, you know, the hairdresser setting, then I enjoy the hairdressers. And I think just the crack and the amount that you hear actually that voice within the hairdressing setting just made it feel perfect. And then the vigilante thing sort of came from when I was trying to figure out what it would actually be about. So I knew I didn't want it to just be it's hairdressers and glam and stuff like that. So I knew I wanted to bring in some kind of comment on Dublin today, because it's been so long since there'd been a good Dublin film. And that's where the idea of, okay, well, what if it's these girls taking back power in their own area and in their own community? And that's where the whole vigilantism thing came into it.
Oh, fantastic. And like what I really love is what you mentioned there about, I suppose, the working class women. And I love the setting of Piglinstown as well. It's I was struck by, I was watching Broken Song last night down in Meeting Square as part of the Diff thing, and the lads rapping in these kind of areas, and it just was like, it's exactly like one of the areas they could have been in. It was so kind of authentic and stuff. How did you did you do much research, I suppose, in terms of the setting and the characters, or were they all people you kind of drew from your own experience?
Yeah, a little bit of both, you know. I'm from the north side, and I suppose those kind of areas aren't foreign to me. You know what I mean? I think some people live in Dublin and never cross into working class areas. It's funny like that, even though it's such a small city. But that wouldn't have been the case for me. So I kind of was familiar enough with those kind of areas, and I knew a lot of people who come from those areas. I would get my hair done often in smaller local salons in different areas. So I suppose it was a voice in a world that I was familiar enough with. But then it was definitely important for me to do my homework as well, because I think there's nothing worse than working class stories being told through a middle class lens kind of thing. So I did go out and specifically go to smaller hairdressers specifically to talk about the film and the idea and the issues that I was trying to address, and get feedback from the community and kind of make sure that it was well represented, I suppose. Yeah.
It certainly seems that way, and it kind of really hit the nail on the head. A lot of issues, like I used to live up in the Liberties, for example, and you know, big hotels going up there. There's a lot of lines about like, oh, who wants a hotel in Piglinstown, and this whole kind of idea of gentrification and kind of rooting out like really, really important and valuable communities there. Was that something you picked up from those conversations, or how did that kind of built in? And especially, I love the councillor kind of saying, "Oh, this will fix it."
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, kind of more broadly, I think gentrification's affected everyone in Dublin. You know, I think it's even, I was living in town at the time, and it was, you know, around the time the Bernard Shaw was being knocked down, and it was just everyone, it just felt like we were just all being bulldozed out of our own city. But inevitably, it disproportionately affects working class communities. Like you mentioned, the Liberties is a great example. One of my favorite salons up on Meath Street, the Glamour Pit, is there. And the
I live right across from the Glamour Pit.
It's amazing, and the girls actually worked on Dead Cuts with us. And also there's another great salon that I go to over in Ballymun, and I think what happened over there was really interesting with the redevelopment project, and I drew a lot directly on that actually. There's a great documentary, I think it's called The Third Act, someone made about the redevelopment in Ballymun and how badly it was done and how it sort of decimated a community essentially. So I drew a lot on that and what's happening in Dublin on a broader level, I suppose. Yeah.
Brilliant. And like when he like it really comes through as incredibly authentic as well, in that. But again, like might sound like we're describing a social realist film here, but it's absolutely hilarious as well. So before I kind of get onto your cast of it, I just want to talk about, like, was comedy something you're always comfortable writing, always in your wheelhouse? Because it is a devastatingly funny script.
Thank you very much. Yeah, comedy would kind of, I suppose, be my comfort zone. I think probably in the development of the script, what the guys, Ciara and Ovine and Liz and the guys in Screen Ireland probably had to help me more with was the sort of the less comedic elements. Like that's probably where I needed to learn my craft a little bit more, I suppose. But the gags come easily enough, I think. But it was really important to, I think, also bring in a heart and a serious message and a good plot as well. Like comedy, I think, needs a solid plot more than anything. I really learned that writing this film. So yeah, comedy easy enough, but whipping it into a shape where it actually becomes something meaningful is tricky.
Well, you had great help there, as you mentioned, with Ciara, Liz, and Ovine. I'm right in saying you pitched this at the Galway Film Fleadh in 2017 or 2018, and that's where the guys came on board. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Rachel?
Yeah, so I had the idea kicking around for a while, kind of just in my head, really. It was very loose. And then the pitching contest at the Fleadh is brilliant. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And I'd done it the year before, and I kind of said, you know what, I was down there with a short, and I said, I'll put this in at the last minute, and I got selected to pitch it. And it was very loosey-goosey still as a script at that stage, as an idea, really, but the core of it was there, and, you know, the response in the room was really good. And so afterwards, Ovine asked me to have a glass of wine, and that's how everything gets done in film in Ireland, I think. And we chatted about it, and she loved it, and subsequently invited me to go and meet with Ciara and with Liz, who just loved the idea. And I think that was the thing with this film, is like everybody was feeling the same way I was, in that why hasn't this film been done yet? You know, where has this voice been? Where have these characters been? So even in that loose stage that it was at, the guys got on board in such a hugely supportive way. And we started really as a team developing it from there.
Brilliant. Ciara, would you like to jump in there? How did you react to the premise in the first place? Because like, as Rachel said, it's like, it seems like this should have been done before. It's like such a brilliant concept, but also with a lot of, I suppose, kind of pathos to it as well, actually.
Yeah, well, Ovine came back from the film fleadh very excited after hearing Rachel's pitch. And it's funny, there's something about this film. It's like from the very beginning, you just, you know, like a group of hairdressers become accidental vigilantes. Everyone's like, I'm in. And I was just like, oh, I'm so in. And then, you know, we were very lucky. We were in a very privileged position. We were able to self-fund the development process ourselves. So once Rachel delivered that first pilot, it's like, oh, this is a no-brainer. She's brilliant. She did her homework on the plot and all that, you know, difficult stuff. But like just from the very get-go, the pilot was funny. It got funnier every draft, and she worked her ass off. In fairness to her, to every draft, but it just got better and better. It was a joy.
That's brilliant, and it's great you were able to, as you said, like you were in a privileged position to be able to like self-fund the development on that.
Yeah.
Once you do your script together, you obviously needed a cast to bring these incredible characters to life. So before I kind of talk to Shauna, Lauren, Angeline, and Ericka, could you tell me a little bit about your casting process? Because like, I can't imagine anyone else playing these characters.
Yeah, well, Rachel was very clear. She was very clear on who she wanted, and she knew exactly who the girls were. So that was amazing. And Rachel, you could, but it was, for me, it was the most exciting part of the whole process was the casting. We had so much fun. We had so much fun in the room with the girls. But, you know, Rachel, you can elaborate more on that. But her vision was very clear from the beginning.
Yeah, it was. You mentioned, Gar, the word authentic, and that was kind of at the heart. That was the drum that I just banged from the very start about this. I knew I didn't want a bad Dublin accent in this film. Like, I just was the hill I would die on. and the girls were in my head, and I'd seen Shauna in a couple of things, but I didn't know Ericka or Lauren really at all. And I was writing it, and I had these characters in my head. I was like, where am I going to find them? I don't know. Like, I was really, really nervous about the girls more than anything. And then we did a read through early on in the process, and Ericka and Shauna came in at that stage. And I remember thinking when they walked in, I was like, oh my God, it's them. It's them. It was actually, it was unbelievable how much. And I remember Ericka, I was like, oh, she can come in and do Gemma. And then at the last minute, I went, no, I got to do Stacey. And then I just couldn't believe it. And so those two, I kind of was like, I don't know how anybody's going to come in and not be them. And then it was just a matter of finding the missing piece of the puzzle, which was fit perfectly by Lauren. So it took a bit longer to find her, but once Lauren came into the room, so we saw a lot of girls then. But I was looking for, I think I had a holy trinity of things that I was looking for, which was like really good actor, funny, and authentically Dublin. And it had to be all three, and it was really hard to find. And then Lauren came in, and then the three of them together was just dynamite. So yeah, once I had the girls in place, and then when we got the Queen Bee, Angeline Ball said yes, which I couldn't believe. And she just came in and gelled with girls so perfectly. And then once we had that, it just happened really organically that all the cast fell into place around these central girls. So it was
there's an absolutely brilliant supporting cast as well, but they do orbit around, I suppose, the centre, which is the four brilliant women we have here. Angeline, if I can turn to you for the moment. I believe, like, Michelle was written for you, I believe, but you also tick that holy trinity box of like Dublin, funny, good actor as well. How did you respond to the script when you got it first? You're muted, sorry, Angeline.
Doing it wrong today, aren't I?
Friday.
Well, as you can imagine, I mean, those of you, like, people out there and you've seen the film, the script just leapt at me. And, I initially got an email from lovely Rachel, and I was kind of praying that it would be good, I'm just saying, please let it be great. And it was a page turner, and I laughed, and I just put it down when I finished, and I just thought, I have to be in this film. There's no way anybody else is playing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing Michelle. So from the minute I finished the script, I just was kind of thinking about how, what she sounded like, where, I was already kind of looking on ASOS for her dresses and her outfits, just to kind of put on my Pinterest board. So yeah, I just completely, it's not often when, a script literally, you just can't put it down. It's just, the plot is amazing. The comedy is amazing. The timing. And not only that, but let's face it, I mean, it's really brilliant for women. And it's written by a woman, directed by a woman, produced by women. What's not to like? What's not to do? I think they don't know this, but they'll know it now. But I would have done it, free. But I would have actually been banging at their door, begging for them to take me. So it just was one of those things that completely worked out. And, in our industry, it doesn't happen all the time. So when it does, it's probably why we are in this industry, for those little magic moments,
That's absolutely brilliantly well said. I think we could leave it there nearly at this point. But what was it about Michelle's character particularly? Like, I love what you said about ASOS on your Pinterest board and kind of get a sense of her style, but what about her kind of character? Because she obviously has that kind of traumatic balding incident in the past. What was it specifically about Michelle you resonated with?
Well, funnily enough, I think Rachel would remember this, that on the first kind of a few days of preparation at Loughlinstown, I kind of nabbed Rachel in where we shot a lot of the Pigler, the bar, and I kind of had this whole backstory about Michelle. And I think Rachel was kind of like a bit like a rabbit in the headlights. I was telling her all about Michelle's past loves and how her heart was broken and where she was in her life now. I mean, that's the kind of pre-Deadly Cutters. But yeah, I just felt that she has this kind of steeliness about her. She is able to manage the girls. She's almost like their shoulder to cry on. Also within the kind of community. And she's one of those kind of very fair people, I would imagine. And I would imagine if anybody was in need in that community, she'd be the one that they would go to. Or if anybody was in trouble, you know, they'd kind of, Michelle has kind of her ear to the ground, you know, and she handles things in a very kind of mannered, calm way. Having said that, you know, there's a side to her that's very vulnerable. Again, we'll mention that incident, the balding incident. So she's not as steely as you would imagine. She's not as kind of put together. I think one of the reasons why she is so put together with the hair and the clothes and the makeup is because she's kind of trying to protect that soft interior, that vulnerableness. I guess she thinks because her did make it into the big salons that she's not worthy.
That's exactly kind of what I got from character, was that steely thing was like a defense mechanism against that kind of, you know, what she had to endure to that point. And it's brilliantly realized. And, you know, I have to say, she's a great character. I'm just going to turn to Ericka for a second as well. Another great character who plays Stacey, who in a lot of ways is her route into this mad world and her desire to participate in and this is when the movie grabbed me about 4 seconds in, with the hair competition. Sorry, that was awfully corking me for some reason. I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. But she kind of brings us, I suppose, into the piece of it. But she also, like Michelle, has this kind of really well-rounded kind of backstory as well, like with, you know, her stuff with her mum. Can you tell me how you responded to a character Stacey in the first place?
Yeah, when I first read the script, I was very much like Angeline as well. I was like, oh my God, I have to be in this film. And it was the first time in a long time that I actually saw something, I saw myself in it. I felt represented in the script. And I thought, like, it really reminded me of me and my own friends, and that proper kind of authentic Dublin humour, like quick-witted, slagging each other, but also like a lot of heart behind it as well. And I couldn't remember like in recent years seeing that or myself in it, like represented. So yeah.
That's brilliant as well. Like, and it is important to have that kind of visibility and kind of presence on our screens a lot more, I think. How did you react to the script in the first place? Obviously you said it was brilliant, but like I can imagine just reading that script would have just been like trying not to laugh your ass off the whole way through it.
Yeah, and as Rachel said, me and Shauna did the forced read through, and like we were pissing ourselves laughing through the whole thing, and we came out and said to each other, we were like, we have to be in this one way or another. Like we are going to make it our business to be in this film. It was just, yeah.
That's fantastic. And Shauna, to you then, Chantel, and I don't want to upset anyone else, but I think Chantel might be my favorite character in it. And like she's one of my favorite lines. I'm actually not good at talking and things, which I identified with quite a bit, as you can see. She's very funny, but also like quite anxious as well. How did you respond when you first read Chantel?
I thought, like, I was reading it the first time I read it and like laughing out loud at her lines. Like I just felt so bad for her. I think it's like the vulnerability in or something, but I do relate to it, like that kind of innocence. And that line, like, I'm not great at talking, it's very close to myself. Like, so I kind of was like, oh my God, I see myself as her. Like, we're very similar in that kind of way. I just loved her innocence and her vulnerability, and the kind of relationship she had with Stacey, where she'd get knocked down and all, and that kind of like nearly motherly relationship with Michelle as well, that Michelle always has her back, you know, and like tells Stacey to leave her alone and all. Like I resonated with that and could see, like when me and Ericka read it at the first read through, I was like, oh my God, because me and Ericka are friends years and we're both very similar to our characters. So I kind of would relate that to our kind of friendship as well, where she's bossing me around basically.
But you didn't have Angeline come in and tell her to leave you alone.
Yeah, exactly.
What I love about her as well is she's actually a genius though. Like, I mean, her whole thing with the platinum thing, actually, do you know, there is I love that stroke of her character.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little surprise then that she's actually Rain Man, like when she's so nervous, but she has that like intelligence about her colours.
That's, I think, my favorite thing with the character is she is so confident, so capable, and so together, and she just kind of thinks, you know, oh, this is too much, but she has it all. Like, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And Lauren, for you, tell us a little bit how you responded to Gemma in the first place. What was it about that spoke to you?
Same as the other women, really. When I read the script, I think I already knew that Shauna and Ericka were doing it. And I knew of Shauna, but myself and Ericka were really good friends. So I could really see how it would work. Like I was like, oh my God, this would be perfect. Like it'd be so perfect. So obviously I was delighted then when I was called in to read for it, and like just reading all the jokes, how well crafted they were, how the setup, like, you know, comedy is, it's easy to be funny, but it is hard to craft a joke, you know, especially when you're trying to write like a plot and a whole narrative and that whole thing. So watching actually just how clever the whole script was really brilliant, and really grabbed me. So yeah, that's.
And you'd done your own piece, Split Ends, a theatre
Yeah.
piece. It was a one-woman show, I believe, which kind of also had like, well, very different. It was nice in that it kind of had a hairdresser having trouble conceiving at that time, and it was just really interesting to see that as a really interesting route into kind of looking at deeper issues as well. But like, did that part of the script attract you?
Oh yeah, 100%. I loved Rachel's script as well because it had something really important to say about gentrification and about working class areas being decimated by big conglomerates and big companies coming in and essentially tearing the heart out of communities. And then I also, like you were saying, made the theatre piece a couple of years before that, I think 2018. And I wanted to make a piece, the same as Rachel, about hairdressers, because I thought great comedy, great, like there's great scope there to make characters that are three-dimensional and are also going in and using it as a space to talk, as a space for therapy, and that's why I put the hairdresser in there having the biggest struggle, but she's not getting any therapy. No one's listening to her problems. She's listening to everyone else's problems, you know? So, yeah.
Well, exactly, yeah, and it is kind of something we don't see a lot. And I suppose what was really interesting for me seeing it over COVID was like, you know, hairdressers are so kind of top of mind for people, and like so a lot of the hardship they endured. It was just brilliant to see this kind of exploration of these like characters we engage with a lot, but perhaps not as much as we should.
We were actually talking about that because the film premiered at the film festival in was it, what year was it? 2021. It's so hard to know what year it is now, isn't it? But it was 2021, and I think the hairdressers were still closed at that point. And we were talking about just how much everyone was missing that, and everyone was missing just even the act of going, you know. Your hair is such a big part of your identity, you know. So it was we really realized how important they are, not just for the physical act of getting your hair done, but emotionally and even spiritually as well, you know.
Yeah, and I suppose it's an important kind of social safe space as well.
That's it, yeah.
So Angeline, Lauren, Shauna, Ericka, like you guys have incredible chemistry as your characters. Like, was that kind of instantaneous when you all met up, or did you kind of work on your different dynamics a bit on it? Angeline, I suppose when you met the other three guys, you know some of them before, I imagine, or how did that come about?
I actually didn't, would you believe? And what is great though is because Dublin is such a small place, as you know, so we actually met, I think it was nearly when we were being picked up to go for our first day of prep, girls, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. I was picked up first, I think, or it was Shauna, and it's like something like 5:30 in the morning, and you're going, hello, hi, and hello, and it turned out that I know Shauna's family from Cabra, and now I've mentioned Cabra again, girls, like I always mention it. Where I'm from, and then Lauren knows my family and knows of me, and so we kind of, who do you know that I know, basically. And then with Ericka, she knew a friend of mine as well, so it was basically through that I know that she knows, and it's almost like this kind of 5 degrees of separation from somebody. If you know her, well then you must be okay, and if you know that person and well then you can be my friend as well, so it was very much like that. But I didn't know the girls, and they were just they knew each other, and what was great is that they were so welcoming to me, and it was literally, I don't know, like I think by the end of that day we kind of were like as if we knew each other for years, really. And the girls are just fabulous, and talk about I'm a professional. I've been in the business years, darling. I mean, we corpsed all the time. We laughed all the time. And I think that's the best way to go to work sometimes. Yeah, we went and it was hard work and we did our job. But at the same time, you've got to be able to laugh at yourself and have a laugh at the people that you're working with,
I can only imagine the amount of corpsing that went on set. Rachel, you mentioned how important it was to have like authentic people casting these roles as well. But did you know that the chemistry between the four would gel as well?
No, I didn't. Like I'd seen the Larkin, Ericka and Shauna in a room together just in rehearsal space, and I knew, you know, it worked. But I think things change when you get in a set and the lights are up and there's a crew around and everything, the pressure is on. And then, you know, throwing Angeline into the mix, of course, as well. And, you know, with films like this, we didn't have a massive amount of rehearsal time or anything like that. And we were shooting in a really small salon and it was freezing cold. So it was kind of like, okay, let's do this, you know, and everybody was thrown in together. And it just worked. I mean, it just worked. All the dynamics just came into play. And the thing about what's so amazing about all the girls is, you know, comedy is so technical. It's really, really hard to perform, and particularly ensemble comedy. Like whatever about me directing it, the girls had to know, here's where you need to be standing, here's where you need to move to in a small space with like 5 people in the room. And by the way, also absolutely nail those gags, please, or that moment of pathos. And it was that they could do that as well. That was just so extraordinary to me without much, you know, pushing or pulling from my end. So what was great for me as a director was because that chemistry was there, I didn't have to try and conjure that up or push it. So that left me free to kind of go, okay, well, what else can we do with this? And, you know, what other way can we play this? And that was just what made it so much fun and why we could have such a laugh, you know.
I can only imagine the crack that was had. I just want to talk before we get on to the shoot a little bit about some of the other actors you had in there. Like you've Ian Lloyd Anderson, he's bloody terrifying as Dino, and like as much as like there's some really great comedy moments, he's genuinely quite terrifying and plays it straight, which I think is great. But you also have like Victoria Smurfett, Paulie McLean, Dermot Ward as Garda Collins, who was that great scene with Shauna's Chantel. And then I think some of my favorite characters, there's a line that "Don't piss off the other ones." It's the first rule in Piglinstown. And you had like Anne Kent, Helen Jordan, and Barbara Brennan as these like absolutely brilliant characters. I think everyone knows someone like them. How did you go about kind of fleshing out the rest of the cast around the four ladies?
Do you mean in the writing or in the actual casting of it? In the casting,
both actually. Sorry, I actually meant casting there, but in the writing as well. There's such great like sport characters, and of course our local city councillor as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, if I go into everyone, it will take forever. It was sort of as the story developed, you kind of figured out who you needed. I think Ian is amazing. And I think him playing that straight, you're right. Like it took a lot of work to try and figure out how to play the gang, I suppose, with a view to what I want the audience to go along with. And, you know, to make it plausible what happens, you know, if you made them too comedic, people weren't going to buy it. And I think me and Ian actually talked a lot about, you know, he was like, I don't think this should be played like a panto villain. I said, I completely agree. I think he has to be super menacing. And then the comedy comes from how the girls respond to him. So, you know, there was kind of just discussions like that along the way. And there was certain characters that had to be quite real and quite grounded. And then other characters like Victoria and like Pauline, where we could heighten things a little bit and where we could just go a little bit more crazy and just have a lot of fun. So it was really interesting for me throughout the process to kind of find that balance and have more fun with some, but give, you know, you mentioned the owl ones. It was important to me to have a generational thing. I think that's true to life in working class areas. You know, there are older women are a key part of the community. You'll always find them in a hairdresser. And I think having them there and having them be powerful figures it's another thing we just don't see, isn't it? You know, and so having them there was important. But also I just think, I mean, Barbara Brennan in particular, they're all brilliant, but she's just so, I think she just nails every single line. And Barbara's, you know, she's a serious actor. We've all seen her on stage. And then she comes in, she just says the word F-U-C-K, sorry, I'm not sure if I could say it, and we were all gone, you know. And so it was amazing. There's no character I don't love, you know. I think they all have their special little moments.
Absolutely. I think that's why I listed them out, because I was just like, there's so many characters and so many moving parts.
I can't hear you now, Gar.
No.
Sorry, I think you lost me there. Did everyone hear me okay?
You're back now. You said moving parts and then I lost you.
Not sure what happened there. Apologies. But like you can all hear me now, okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Like you pack so much into like a very kind of small amount of time. Like there's the whole social commentary, the comedy, all the like I suppose menace and threat in it as well. Like, and I imagine balancing that tone on set with the actors as well. Like you're saying with Ian Lloyd, like having to keep it, he's going to play it straight. This part's going to be quite broad. That's there. Like, how do you kind of balance tone, thinking about the end product in those kind of moments?
Yeah, I think you really need to know in your own head what you're looking for going in. And I think when the characters, once you've created the characters in that way in your head and you're super clear, and then you just ask them to play themselves. You know what I mean? So you're not going to be going in and asking Chantal to play this in a different way than she has been the whole film. She's suddenly not going to pitch up the comedy. So she's just going to react to that scenario within the context of the film in real life. And I think that's how you keep it consistent. So yes, Dino is menacing and he's real, but how the girls react is quintessentially the girls, in any scenario. And the same when they encounter hilariously, the likes of Victoria or Polly McLean, who are up here, and the girls suddenly seem more like down here. And I think that's how you keep the thread going and you make sure that it works.
That's really interesting looking at that. There are other people who hype and stuff, then they can be learning that. That's really interesting. I think we've lost Angeline slightly, but hopefully she'll pop back in a sec. Ciara, if I can turn to you and Rachel again a bit before I talk to the guys again. Tell me about the shoot. How long was the shoot in total? Like Rachel's mentioned, it was in like a lot of it in a very small, so it was hair salon and stuff. But how long did you shoot for?
It was 5 weeks. 5 weeks shoot, 5 week prep. The locations are really important on this one, so important. Colin Nolan did an amazing job. Just Loughlinstown being so contained with everything that Rachel needed, the hair salon, the chipper, the boozer, the butcher. And then with our hair as well, like trying to find that location for our hair was tricky, but we did it. So that was, it was a low budget. So that was a big, like our hair was a big part of the film. So we needed to make it look big and, give Rachel the place that she wanted, for that vision. But so the locations containing everything, keeping everything small was key.
I have to say I was very impressed with the hair set. It kind of reminded me of early IFTAs, actually. I was like, where did they shoot it?
So that was shot our hair. So I have to major props to everyone, like JJ Rolfe, my DP, and especially Tamara Conboy, who was head of art, who is just amazing. And when I tell you, I pushed her to the extremes. So we shot that in what was the Right venue out in Swords. So it was essentially just like a black, normally a dance venue, and it had a glitter ball, but it was kind of a blank canvas. And I said, I had loads of references for Tamara of like these big hair shows, which are very glam, and very sort of high spec. And I was like, can you make this? And she did it. I think it looked amazing. I think I was so happy. And JJ as well worked with his team to get, we pyrotechnics in there. I can't believe what I managed to persuade people to do. So I was so delighted with how that looked in the end. And it was so, we didn't have a huge amount of money, but it was just a crew that were really, really good at their job, and everyone was just so committed to it. It was.
Well, that was actually the next thing I was going to ask was about specifically JJ and Tamara, your DOP and production designer, but also your hair and makeup team must have had a hell of a job as well. They did amazing. Like I know it was like Lindsay Heron and Dwena Kelly, to name just two of them. But what was their I imagine they were pushed quite far as well.
They were. So Lindsay, I asked Lindsay to meet someone, had given me her name. So Lindsay actually works sometimes in the Glamour Pit. Actually, she's a very, very busy film hairdresser, but she happened to be just helping out in the Glamour Pit one week. So I asked her, would she go for a coffee with me to talk about this film? And she is just the most amazing person. And she was like, absolutely, I'll jump in and do that for you. And it was a good while before the actual film took off. I remember when we brought Lindsay to the first kind of production meeting, and she was going through what would actually be required in the wigs and Chantel's bowl cut and like all these things, and you could just see her going, okay, and she just rallied like a great team of people around her and managed it. Because we, like, when you go to a hair show, every extra has to look good, you know. Nobody's going to be rocking up with that with bad hair. So there was just a constant team of people churning out the extras. And the same with Edwina, like on the makeup and her team, they worked so hard because the glam had to be right or it was never going to ring true, you know. And I think they just did an amazing job.
Absolutely, like it looked incredible. I'm going to come back to the cast now. Talking about the shoot, like you mentioned, it was quite a lot of fun. You were corpsing a lot, Angeline, you said. But like, what about scenes where like spoilers if anyone hasn't seen it, but something bad happens to Dino, and that looked really quite intense on like watching it. Like, I'm just wondering what it was like to shoot a scene like that.
Well, yeah, it was very intense, but again, we had a great crew around us. We had a fight coordinator. So, and again, within a small space, we had to do what we could. But, you know, everybody, you have to, when you've got something like that and a fight scene coming up and it's been coordinated and all, you really have to be on your game, you know. So all of us were, and we all knew what we were doing. And, you know, it does take, you know, you really have to get your adrenaline going for that, don't you, girls? It's like just really, you know, all or nothing. And, you know, there's a lot of kind of, you know, when you have props like blood and all of that kind of thing, you know, it takes a lot of time to film. And then sometimes one of us might have a fit of the giggles and that's it. Without giving away any spoilers, the crew were actually filming us on their iPhones of us laughing so much that we couldn't get it together, the girls and I, and we know what bit we're talking about there, don't we? So, and that's great. But yeah, I mean, it's, again, hats off to Ian Lloyd Anderson, because he's just an incredible actor, and he kept that character all the way through for us, for somebody to, you know, act off and against. So, yeah, it was just, what was great as well is that we almost shot in sequence, didn't we? There wasn't too much out of sequence, Rachel.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
And that's really kind of good. So kind of you can keep up with the story and all of that. But I
imagine that helps a lot with like keeping that balance between like the humor and the other parts and that tone and keeping that consistent over the arc.
Yeah, absolutely. But also I think, you know, as Rachel said, it was a small space. We had 6-week shoot. There was a lot to get through. So, you know, you're focused, and on those lovely bright moments when you do have a little bit of a laugh, I guess it's, you know, it's a little bit of letting off steam, you know.
And I think that's going to reflect in the film. And Lauren, Shauna, and Ericka, I'm going to ask you about this, but because there is that very intense scene that Angeline was talking about there, and you having to be on your game, but then it's like undercut with like what they're trying to do after that with like, he's not a effing slice of toast, Chantel. Like there's that great, like, because you're like, that was a bit shocking, and then it's absolutely priceless again. So how did you guys, let's say Shauna, Lauren, Ericka, if any of you want to jump in, how did you kind of feel about that kind of like intense scene and then like balancing it with the comedy straight away after? Shauna, maybe we'll turn to you.
Yeah, that scene, the lead up to that scene with Dino, when he drags Chantel in by the hair, like that scene, I think we filmed that a few times, but that was really intense. Like the majority of the scenes we shot, like we'd be able to have, like we'd be laughing or like they'd be comedic, but that scene from like for me as an actor was really intense to film, like because Ian is like absolutely amazing, like so it was really real and he was really scary. So like one of the takes that we had, we stopped and I couldn't console myself. I was sobbing, like just standing in the corner, and then we filmed the rest of it. But then that scene when we go into the butcher shop is just a complete like different, like what's the word I'm looking for, comparison. Like it was just, that was hilarious. We had to with the little farts and all from Chantel, so it was a completely like different experience, but also like a challenging one as an actor. It's that's your job, like, so it was amazing. But it was that scene in the butcher shop, like we got in so much trouble from the first AD for that because we couldn't stop laughing. Yeah.
And Eric and Lauren, I saw you both nodding vociferously or seriously, a lot there to what Shauna was saying about that kind of intensity of that scene and the challenges was as an actor. Lauren, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just remember after those 2 days shooting being like extremely, even though we had rehearsed it to within an inch of its life, I think we spent like 2 days rehearsing that with Donald and stuff. I could have that wrong, but I know we spent a good bit of time rehearsing it, and then it was a full day shooting it. So I remember at the end just the adrenaline crash of it, but also being like physically sore from all the using your arms and you know, all that kind of thing. Going, oh God, like it was a real tool into acting as well, because it really fueled something, you know. And then yeah, you flip it on its head when you go in to do the second scene that you speak of, and that was the same. That was like very physical as well, you know. But it had that lovely layer of like bonkers comedy to it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were challenging, but I actually felt the end of those days as exhausting and kind of like adrenaline crashy as they were the kind of two most satisfying days for me. I really enjoyed shooting those.
Ericka, would you agree with that? Were they like 2 days as an actor you found very satisfying and
Yeah.
challenging as well, or were there any other particular moments you found really kind of?
Yeah, like it's a gift as an actor to have like characters that aren't just one dimensional. But my favorite scene probably to do for the whole thing was me and Ange's scene outside the pub, and like because we had so much crack and we were laughing throughout the whole filming period, that was one of the moments that could actually really settle in and really, I don't know what to say.
Kind of delving into the emotion of Stacey, weren't you?
Yeah, and it was like it was funny because, as we said, like all we did was laugh, and that particular scene, it was like everybody in the whole crew, all the cast, it was just everyone just settled in around and just kind of let us have that moment. And yeah, I think that was probably my favorite scene to do out of the whole thing. And then again, go into another scene where we were just pissing ourselves again, like, so yeah.
Yeah, it's great when you can get, and again, thanks, hats off to Rachel's writing as well. So you have this madcap, crazy adrenaline, aggression, comedy, running around, hair competitions, all that, and then you have this lovely poignant moment where Ericka's character, you know, talks about her mother, and it's a realization for her as well that probably Spain is not going to happen. Spoiler alert. So, you know, again, I think what's great about the film is it brings you on a journey, and like you think it's going to go down this, and then you end up in a cul-de-sac, like with myself and Ericka, and it's like a little bit teary and weepy, you know.
And it's the stillest moment. It's a very busy film.
Yeah.
Stillest moment in the whole film, and that's what makes it so beautiful, you know.
Exactly. This keeps coming up again, how extraordinarily well balanced the whole thing is, I think. Ciara and Rachel, we've talked a little bit about some of the difficulties you had, mostly your cast upsetting your AD with their incessant laughing and corpsing, but also I suppose the locations and hair. But I'm just curious, and always like for any kind of, you know, budding filmmakers tuning in, were there any particular challenges you came across that you know, had to overcome in an interesting or, you know, way that you could spare someone else from having to learn the first time? Was there any particular moments where you're like, oh, how do we do this?
Yeah, I think, you know, definitely there was things in the script that I kind of said, I'll figure it out in the day. You know, not many, but there were a few things where I was like, I'll see what it looks like when it's up. And, you know, I was tired of writing at that stage. And I was like, I want to get making, you know, let's see this thing on its feet. That's a huge mistake. You know, definitely you should have room for improvisation and stuff to happen, because it does, and it's magic and it's great. But the pressure, we were shooting so much in such a short period of time and trying to make a billion decisions. And when you're a director on a set like that, you have people just coming at you like a snowstorm. And then people are like, is this the script, or did you want to write something else for this? I go, Jesus. So this thing, you know, I definitely think you should be absolutely as solid as you can possibly be with your script, whether you've written it yourself or not, but know exactly how it's going to work, you know, and then you have room to play, but don't go in thinking you'll figure it out there and then. And then I suppose, especially as a first-time feature maker, if it was advice, like, yeah, there's going to be challenges. There was a lot I'd never done before. I'd never just shot a fight scene before. you know, the spectacle of the set pieces at Hair. So I just knew I needed the right people around me. So Donal, who did, what's Donal's last name? I've completely forgotten. What? Oh, sorry. Donald, who did stunts, came in, and he's just such a pro, and he was able to pull out of me, here's what I want, and then he was able to implement it. And, you know, likewise across the board with Tamara and with JJ and stuff like that. So surround yourself with the people who know how to do it. I'd say the bits that you don't.
Absolutely. It's all Ciara nodding there as well about having, you know, I think someone mentioned another one of these about improv is great like that, but you need to prepare for spontaneity. Like you need to have kind of exactly that down. Ciara, anything from your end on that you'd share with someone?
Just in terms, Leslie McKim was amazing from Screen Ireland. She was really great. It was a first time feature for myself and Orvin. So surrounding ourselves with people who are super experienced was massive, you know, that those people like saved us, you know, in people like Donal who are so experienced, Liz Gill on script, Annalise O'Callaghan on budget and just a physical production, so that was amazing. Our title was tricky. We we went through a lot of titles.
It was originally Cutters, was it?
Cutters,
it was originally Cutters. We had hair razors, I think, on shoot. Yeah, all the call shoots. Anyway, we went through
Hair razors, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of titles. We got there in the end. We went back to the old reliable. And then COVID, in terms of holding, we shot this in December 2019. Like, you know, holding on was just, so Wildcard were just amazing in coming in and just nailing the premiere and the date and just lining it all up. It was fantastic. So yeah, we got over COVID.
Surround yourself with the best people, and I think like that's easier said than done, but we've got a great project and great people like you guys involved. Probably easier to surround yourself with great people. They just want to work with you and work on this project. We're running out of time a little bit, so I just want to talk a little bit, Rachel, about the post-production process. Like, as we mentioned, there's so much going on in the film, but yet it feels very, very lean. Like, was there anything left on the cutting room floor, or like was it pretty much as written? I can see Ciara like smiling here.
So there are a couple of scenes that didn't see the light of day. Not many. So actually, when the script was finished, we were always like, it's too long, it's too long, it's too long. And I knew I wanted it, though. I always knew it was going to be a film that went at breakneck speed. So it was originally, John Waters did some of the editing, and then with COVID, he got moved on to something else. So Gavin Buckley took it up, and everything moves really, really quickly, and the edit works in that way. And I think the style of film it is, and the tone and the Dublin dialect, it moves really, really fast. So I think it sort of naturally became quite lean. Like, I remember being quite surprised even myself. I was like, oh, when we got to early edits, and I was like, it's quite short. And then it just really became a matter of, in the edit, honing down the story and knocking the edges off it. So it wasn't really a length thing, but more about just getting it clear, because there is a lot going on. There is. And you know, the scenes that are gone, you know, there's a scene with DeLogan and the girls backstage at Hair that I love. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. That I loved personally, but apologies, you know, we kind of realized it wasn't. Could you hear me that time, Gar? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Could you hear me?
Nope. I don't know what happened there. Gremlins, I'm blaming. Guys, the film's been a huge success. Like Rachel just mentioned there about it going on, obviously Wildcard was distribution and premiering at DIF, but it was the most successful Irish film of 2021, the highest grossing film by an Irish female director in over 20 years. It opened the top 10 in the UK and Ireland box office, and like the response has been incredible since it's been on Netflix. So like maybe I just want to talk to like Angeline, Lauren, Shauna, and Ericka on this. Like, when did you all see it? Did you see it together first, and how has the response been for you guys?
We saw it like when we were still kind of in lockdown, didn't we? We got some Vimeo link, and it was really nice. Well, you get 2 goes at the link, and my daughter, well, for me, I didn't really get to see it. I had to ask again for it because my daughter had said, I know what to do to get it from the link on your Mac to your television. And that was one view gone. And then she did the second one, and that was the second view gone. So I had to ask for it again. But yeah, we did. We all saw it individually. And then we only got together and saw it on the big screen ensemble for the premiere in 2020. 2021. Sorry. So yeah, we and that was such a great night for us, and a great celebration for everybody involved to be able to go to and watch it on cinema, because, well, for me anyway, I really thought that it was 100 times better watching it on the big screen.
It always is, I think, and I think it is an audience film, like in so many ways.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in the big screen myself, but I still laugh my arse off at it. But I can imagine the energy at a premiere like that. Ericka, you mentioned at the start about, like, you know, reading a character like Stacey and seeing yourself on screen or seeing yourself on a page is really important. How is it seeing, like, the film, firstly, with like an audience like that?
Sorry, you broke up there for me, Gar. Sorry.
Oh, excuse me. Apologies. Can you hear me okay?
No, I think it's actually my connection.
We'll blame mine. It's
Sorry,
fine.
could you repeat
Ericka,
that?
I think you mentioned at the top that how important it was seeing like a character like Stacey that you could identify with on the page.
Yeah.
How is it seeing like a character like that with an audience of people at a kind of big premiere screening?
Oh, it was brilliant. Like, even just like hearing the audience laugh back, that was because we all thought it was funny when we were making it, and we all knew that each other found it funny, but to actually hear other people, strangers, laughing at it, that was probably the adrenaline buzz off that was huge.
I can imagine. And Lauren, for you?
Oh, same. I remember just sitting with the girls and kind of going, because it was the first time as well, like the cinema was really full. So, you know, you're kind of going, oh my God, it just was a little slice of normality. And then it just happened to be a comedy that we were all laughing at. It was very, very special.
And it was great to give each other the little nudges as well during because that was their first time to see it together as well.
Yeah, I'd say we were insufferable in the audience.
Oh, absolutely.
Shauna, I'd say you got a few little elbows for any of Chantel's kind of.
Yeah, we were just elbowing each other the whole time because we were remembering all our little jokes.
Yeah,
Legs were getting pinched. We were just killing each other.
yeah.
How did you find that, Shauna, the premiere screening?
Oh, I was the same as the girls. We sat at the back, so like we sat at the back row so we could see everybody. Like, I'd say that was nerve-wracking for the audience knowing we were there, like, but there was a laugh a minute, like, and so much so that you're nearly missing the next gag because you're still laughing at the other. So even us, like, well, I think we'd seen it twice before or 3 times before, but like we still found it so funny, like we were laughing at ourselves, and like, yeah, it was just great seeing an audience. I went to see it a few more times after with like family and friends, and the same thing now, like obviously no one knows who I am or recognizes me, but like seeing like a completely random audience that aren't at the premiere with the cast, you know, like just a random audience on a Saturday afternoon like laughing, it's a great film.
It's even the music.
Rachel, sorry, Angeline. Sorry.
It was also great to hear the music at full welly, full blast.
Yeah.
You know, it's such great soundtracks to it. That it was just great because that, you know, surround sound of, you know, all that music is amazing.
Yeah. The kneecap stuff is really strong.
Yeah.
And Rachel and Ciara, for you, like the response has been incredible. Like it really has. Like I think audience have really loved it. Like, I mean, how was that for you guys?
Yeah, brilliant. It's kind of been hard to take in, to be honest, because it's been sort of like a slow release. You know, it got its premiere diff and got a few reactions, and then, you know, it got a cinema release, and I knew, you know, it was kind of overall going down well. But it was really, for me, I was like, I always knew I wanted it to be an audience's film. You know what I mean? Like I really did make it for people to have a laugh. And I was like, what if it connects with a handful of people and it lifts a few people's days, that's my job done. But it was particularly, I think, around the Netflix release, which I didn't see coming at all, that it sort of went mad, you know, and I just really started to feel the response coming from everywhere. Like there's not, my postman was like knocked on the door the other day, I seen that he cuts, and, you know, quoting his favorite lines, like everyone has seen it. And it's just amazing because like, it's a comedy, and it's just made people laugh, you know, and it's not about, oh, well done, you know, you're great. It's just, this is what everyone needed right now, and this is what comedy should do, and everyone gets it and gets what we were trying to do with it, and they like that it's authentic, and they like that it's young women, you know. So it's just, I couldn't ask for better, really.
And just before we finish up, guys, I mean, it looks like, based on the end of it and things, that there could be more a return to Deadly Cuts for people on the cards. Like, so can we talk anything about, is there a possibility of a return to Piglinstown?
Ciara?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we're looking at it. Yeah, she's riding away, aren't you, Rachel?
Yeah, Piglinstown is still a suburb of Dublin for the time being.
Okay,
Still,
okay.
But it's definitely on the map.
yeah, hasn't been redeveloped yet.
No.
Okay, well, I think myself and a lot of people, most people who've seen it, I imagine, if not everyone, would definitely like to see more of that. And especially Angeline, Ericka, Shauna, Lauren, yourselves, like all just absolutely terrific characters, incredibly well performed, and with that perfect mix, I think, of kind of humor and like real substance and pathos. So well done to you all, and Rachel and Ciara as well. We're going to leave it there, guys. I've had an absolute ball talking to you about Deadly Cuts, and I really hope there's more to come. So thank you all so much, and thank you for tuning in as well. I feel like we see this should be up next week on the IFTA website. And next week we'll be talking to some of the people behind Shadows, and of course Swan Song, Ben Cleary's feature debut, which is on Apple. So please do keep an eye on IFTA.ie for that. But for now, Ciara Appelbe, Rachel Carey, Lauren Larkin, Angeline, Shauna Higgins, and Ericka, thank you so much for taking the time today, and thank you for Deadly Cuts.